The quarantine vault on Titan's orbital ring held enough antiviral doses to save 20,000 colonists, and Kale Draven was about to steal every last one. His pulse echoed in his ears as the bioscanner flashed against his palm. The identity chip he carried, a forged imprint of Director Hensley's credentials, throbbed in his wrist like a parasite. 5 seconds. The locks cycled amber, then green. A muted hiss, and the door disengaged. Inside, rows of vacuum-sealed crates sat in sterile silence, the kind of silence that made Kale's jaw tighten. The crates weren't heavy, too light for something people were dying for in the outer settlements. That was the cruelest part. Enough medicine to save children, mothers, miners, hidden away because Earth's central authority had decided Titan's orbiters were low priority. Kale worked quickly. His dolly hummed, magnetic clamps securing each crate. His movements were sharp, practiced, almost military. He had practiced this moment over and over while sitting at his sister's bedside, watching her bones push against her skin as the plague consumed her. Morel had been 15, bright, stubborn, with a laugh that had filled their tiny habitat with warmth. She was gone now. Bureaucracy had killed her as surely as any virus. A calm chime pulsed on his wrist display. Transport ready? The renegade prepped for departure. Kale pushed the dolly toward the exit. The corridor lights dimmed, and then the voice came, smooth, clipped, resonating through hidden speakers. Draven. The beautiful thing about Titan's ring is there's only one way out. Director Hensley's pale, hawkish face flickered across a security hollow in front of the door. His expression was equal parts triumph and contempt. Red warning lights strobed across the corridor, painting Kale in crimson. Kale didn't run. Running was panic. Panic was mistakes. He kept walking, dolly rolling smoothly beside him, each step deliberate. Past observation windows, Hensley's image followed, a phantom shadow. 47 children died this week, Hensley said coldly. But they were stationer kids. Drillers' kids. Lives that don't make it into quarterly projections. Kale's hand brushed the grip of his pistol but didn't draw. His voice came low, steady. Morel was 15. And you think theft makes this right? You think you're a savior? Kale reached the docking bridge where the renegade waited, scarred and patched but steady. He turned his head just enough for the cameras to catch his eyes. I'm not a savior, he said. I'm a brother with nothing left to lose. The first shot caught Hensley in the shoulder, spinning him out of sight. The second ended his voice mid-word. Kale holstered the pistol, sealed the airlock, and stepped aboard his ship. By the time Titan's security swarmed the dock, the renegade was already burning ion trails toward outlaw space. In her hold, salvation, stacked in cold metal crates. And for one boy who had once laughed too loudly and loved too fiercely, salvation that had come too late. Metal screamed as the renegade tore through Saturn's shadow, engines pushing harder than her frame was ever meant to endure. Kale's fingers danced across the control interface, rerouting coolant, throttling thrust, cursing under his breath when half the warnings refused to clear. Outlaw space is only 20 minutes away, he reminded himself. Just 20. The authority wouldn't risk pursuit past that line. Not where syndicates ruled and law was something you bought by the hour. Then the alarm klaxon shrieked, cutting through his thoughts. Warning! The console intoned in 3 clipped languages. Port drive failure imminent. No, no, no. Kale slammed the override. The renegade bucked, the deck trembling like an angry beast. A bitter scent filled the cabin, electrical fire. His tongue caught copper. Through the viewport, Titan's curve fell away, and ahead stretched the vast darkness speckled with stars. Freedom. The explosion tore through his ship before freedom could taste real. The port engine went up in a white-hot bloom, slamming Kale sideways against his restrained harness. Pain flared across his ribs. The renegade spun, gravity failing. The world tilting until up and down meant nothing. Kale fought the stick. Come on, girl, hold together. He'd flown atmospheric dropships during the Belt Wars. This wasn't his first crash. But it might be his last. The renegade clipped the edge of a debris field, broken hulls, skeletal remains of ships abandoned to outlaw space. One jagged freighter carcass caught them, tearing away what little stability Kale had salvaged. The ship spun end over end, the crimson smear of a rogue moon filling the viewport. "Mayday!" Kale barked into comms. "Human vessel going down!" "Coordinates!" Static swallowed him. Of course it did. Nobody listened to distress signals out here. The impact was chaos. Hull plating screamed, cargo clamps snapped, and crates of vaccine burst free, scattering like dice across alien soil. The renegade plowed into the ground, rolled, and came to rest on her side, flames licking along her belly. Silence, except for the tick-tick of cooling metal. Kale hung in his harness, blood running hot from his nose. He fumbled for the release, jammed, naturally. With a growl, he pulled his combat knife and sawed through the straps. Gravity did the rest, dropping him hard onto what used to be the ceiling. "Son of a..." He staggered to the cargo hold. The door was warped, its manual release spinning uselessly. Smoke seeped into vents, acrid and suffocating. He coughed, lungs burning. Then he froze. Footsteps. Deliberate. Measured. Echoing against his ruined hull. Someone was humming. 6 notes, strange and unresolved, beautiful in a way that made his skin prickle. A line of light carved through the sealed door, blue-white, a plasma torch cutting with eerie precision. The metal fell inward with a clang, smoke billowing out into the night. Through it stepped a figure. She moved like flowing mercury, every motion fluid and intentional. Her jumpsuit was black as deep space, hugging a frame built for balance and grace. Violet skin caught the firelight, almost glowing, patterned with subtle scales that shimmered like starlight. Silver-white hair, braided into a mechanic's knot, bared the long, elegant line of her neck. And her eyes, golden, bright, and burning with amusement that bordered on predatory. "You humans," she said, her voice low and smooth, accented in strange rhythms. "For a species that claims intelligence, you crash with spectacular enthusiasm." Kale's pulse spiked. Outlaw space wasn't empty after all. She stepped fully inside, the glow of her torch fading as she clipped it to her belt. The smell of ozone clung to her, mingling with something sharp, like spice and rain before a storm. Kale instinctively reached for the pistol at his hip. Her golden eyes flicked down, caught the movement, and curved into something like amusement. "Go ahead," she murmured, her accent turning the words into velvet and steel. "Try to draw. I'll enjoy watching you fumble before you die." Kale's hand froze, but his jaw tightened. "Depends," he said. "Are you here to help, or to strip my ship?" Her smile widened, showing teeth a little too sharp to be human. "Both are profitable options." She prowled closer, boots whispering on the warped decking. Every step was deliberate, as though she were stalking prey. Kale forced himself not to back up. His ribs throbbed, smoke burned his eyes, but he stood steady. When she was close enough that the heat of her skin seeped through his flight suit, she pressed a humming tool, a plasma wrench, against his chest. Its energy bled warmth into his sternum, one notch below lethal. "You have that look," she said softly. "The look of a hero. Or maybe a fool. Tell me which, human." Kale managed a thin smile. "Usually both." A laugh slipped from her lips, low, rich, edged with danger. "Bold. I like that." She stepped back, deactivating the wrench. Her eyes swept the shattered cargo bay. The busted crates. The shattered vials glinting in crimson moonlight. Her nostrils flared once, delicate. "Medical stockpiles," she said flatly. "Stolen from Earth Authority. And the smell of powder on you still." She glanced back at him, golden gaze sharp. "You killed to get this." Kale didn't deny it. "I stole them for the colonies in the belt." Kids dying while the Authority debates protocols. He forced the words out steady. "I killed one man to do it." Her expression shifted, not sympathy, but something more dangerous. Recognition. She turned away, trailing her fingertips across the scorched hull as if listening to the ship breathe. "You shouldn't be here." she said finally. This is Syndicate space. They'll be here soon, and they won't bother asking if you had noble reasons. They'll butcher you, human. Then why are you still standing here? Kale asked. She looked back at him, smile curling like smoke. Because I'm deciding if you're more valuable dead or alive. The plasma wrench snapped back to life, bathing them both in blue light. She crouched, examined the cracked panel, and muttered in a tongue Kale didn't know, liquid syllables, like water flowing over stone. When she stood, she fixed him with that predatory gaze again. Your ship is salvageable, she said. Barely. But I don't waste my time on incompetence. She moved closer, so close her voice was almost a whisper against his ear. Prove to me you're worth saving, human. 3 tests. Survive them, and I'll keep the Syndicate's blades from carving you open. Fail, and you and this wreck belong to my clan. Kale held her gaze, ignoring the shiver her words sent down his spine. And if I say no? Her smile returned, sharp, knowing. Then I leave. And you discover just how creative the Syndicate can be with human anatomy. The plasma torch in her hand hissed softly. Outside, Kale heard engines, deep, guttural, getting closer. Time was running out. Name, he said finally. She tilted her head, silver hair sliding like silk. Syra, she answered. Then, and you human? Kale Draven. Her lips curved again, dangerous and amused. Then, Kale Draven, welcome to your first test. Engines rumbled outside, low and guttural, shaking the wreckage beneath Kale's boots. He moved toward the broken viewport, wiping soot from his face. Through the smoke and red haze of the alien sky, he saw them, 3 vehicles grinding down the canyon slope. Rusted frames welded together from the bones of dead ships, bristling with mounted weapons. The Violet Syndicate, Syra said, matter-of-fact, as if pointing out a change in the weather. She clipped the plasma wrench to her belt and stretched like a predator limbering before the hunt. They own this canyon. And they don't share. Kale's hand hovered near his pistol again. So what's your plan? Her golden eyes glinted in the strobing firelight. You don't speak. You don't move unless I say. And above all, you don't step between me and Corvain. Who's Corvain? His answer arrived as the lead vehicle ground to a halt. The hatch creaked open, and out stepped a mountain of an alien. His scaled hide was the color of rusted blood, scars carving maps of violence across 4 thick arms. Black, pupilless eyes fixed on Syra, and his lipless mouth split in a grin that looked like broken glass. Syra, he rumbled, voice like gravel in a furnace. Still collecting strays, I see. Kale felt Syra's posture shift, subtle, but telling. Her stance widened, hands loose at her sides. Prepared. Found myself an opportunity, she said smoothly, golden eyes never leaving Corvain. A profitable one. Corvain's laugh shook the canyon walls. A human? They don't last here. Remember the last one? What was left fit into a recycler bin. He prowled closer, his lower hands resting on weapon hilts, the upper ones crossing thickly over his chest. His gaze cut to Kale like a knife. Do you even know what she is, human? What she's worth? Kale's jaw clenched. I know she's the reason I'm still breathing. Corvain bared too many teeth. Then she's being merciful. For now. He reached out, gripping Syra's arm with the casual possession of a man who believed she still belonged to him. Before Kale could step forward, Syra twisted free with a flicker of strength that surprised even Corvain. Her voice rang across the canyon, sharp and commanding. The human is under my protection. Silence followed. Even the Syndicate mercs shifted uneasily, their weapons trained but uncertain. Corvain's grin returned. Darker this time. Your apprentice? He mocked, circling them both like a predator testing its prey. You'd take a human as your apprentice? Bold Syra. Reckless. The warlord will want to hear this when he returns. His eyes lingered on Kale a heartbeat too long. Then he barked a signal. The Syndicate fighters lowered their weapons, reluctantly. 7 cycles, Corvain said, backing toward his vehicle. When the warlord arrives, he'll want his mechanic back. And your human's head for his collection. The engines roared to life, kicking up crimson dust as the syndicate withdrew, leaving tension like a knife blade in their wake. Only when the last engine faded did Syra exhale, her shoulders relaxing by a fraction. That, Kale said carefully, went well? She turned to him, golden eyes unreadable. You've no idea what you just cost me. Then why claim me at all? Her gaze softened for the briefest flicker. Because I recognize the look in your eyes. Someone who's lost everything and decided to do something stupid about it. She moved toward the ruined ship, already scanning what could be salvaged. Come, apprentice. Your second test begins now. Kale swallowed, chest still tight from the encounter. Apprentice. Protection. Tests. He wasn't sure if he'd just been saved, or sentenced. The sky split open with a sound like the world itself tearing in half. Purple lightning arced across the crimson clouds, electromagnetic waves slamming into the ruined renegade. Consoles flickered, sparks spat from torn panels, and the ship groaned as if begging to die. Syra didn't flinch. She tugged a scarred environment suit from a storage locker and began pulling it on, the material stretching tight over violet curves that seemed carved for motion. The seals hissed, her golden eyes glowing brighter through the half-lit gloom. Second test, she said. Calm. Measured. We either restabilize the external gyros, or this ship becomes a crater with our names on it. Kale gripped the control stick as the renegade bucked under another surge. That storm will shred you alive out there. Only if you fail. She snapped her helmet into place, visor humming as it polarized. You'll be my eyes. I'll be your hands. Together, or we die together. She moved toward the airlock. Kale lunged after her, but she was already inside, sealing the inner hatch. Syra. No time. Keep us steady. Her voice crackled in his earpiece. And don't you dare leave that cockpit. The outer door opened. The storm swallowed her whole. Kale gritted his teeth and fought the controls. The ship pitched like a drunk animal, gravity flickering, alarms screaming. Through the one working sensor, he tracked her dot crawling along the hull. 20 meters from the stabilizer array. Wind from your 3 o'clock, he said, forcing calm into his voice. Noted, she replied. A grunt of effort. The dot lurched too fast. Tether's gone, she hissed. Kale's chest clenched. 15 meters from the edge. Use your torch, melt a handhold. A flare of blue light on the external cam. The dot stopped sliding. Relief hit him so hard his hands shook. Good girl, he muttered. I heard that. She shot back, breathless. Careful, human. I might start thinking you like me. Just hurry, he growled, though a grin tugged despite himself. The ship bucked again, nearly rolling. Kale fought it back upright, sweat stinging his eyes. On his screen, Syra's dots steadied near the stabilizer array. Sparks erupted in the storm. Her voice hissed through static. Discharge hit, can't feel my left arm. Still working. Syra, get back inside. Now. Negative. Without stabilizers, we're art. And I'm not dying for art. Kale's jaw locked. He clung to the stick, hard hammering, listening to her strained breathing as she worked. Almost there, she gasped. The NAV console flashed green. Stabilizers online. And then lightning struck directly where she was. Her scream ripped through the comms, raw and primal, then cut to static. Her dot vanished. No! Kale unbuckled, bolting from the cockpit. Protocol screamed to stay. Protocol had never met Syra. He fought down the tilting corridor, grabbing bulkheads as the ship twisted. The airlock was cycling when he got there. Smoke. Sparks. The inner door opened, and Syra collapsed into his arms. Her suit was charred, visor cracked, her violet skin pale and cold. Come on, Syra. Stay with me. He dragged her clear as the hatch sealed. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed but sharp enough for one rasping quip. You left the controls. Kale held her tighter, voice rough. Yeah, well, you left the ship. Her laugh was weak, broken, but real. No one's ever left the controls for me before. He wrapped his jacket around her, her cool skin shivering against him. No one's ever been worth it before. The stabilizers hummed, holding the ship steady against the storm. For a heartbeat, they just breathed together. Two broken survivors, tethered now by something more dangerous than electricity. Trust. 3 days later, Kale followed Syra into her workshop carved deep into the canyon wall. The storm had passed, leaving the sky bruised violet and streaked with lightning that still flashed in the distance. But here, inside the labyrinth of stone and steel, the air hummed with another kind of electricity. The place was a mechanic's paradise, and a graveyard. Workbenches cluttered with tools from half a dozen worlds. Broken engine cores stripped bare. Fragments of syndicate drones hung like trophies from the ceiling. The smell of oil, ozone, and old fire filled Kale's lungs. Syra moved through it like she belonged to it, or maybe it belonged to her. Her hands trailed over engines like they were living things. When she spoke, it was almost reverent. Machines don't think in lines, Kale. Humans always go A to B to C. But metal? Circuits? They flow in loops. They listen differently. You don't command them. You whisper. She bent over an exposed core, silver hair falling into her face, golden eyes narrowed in focus. Kale was supposed to be watching her work, but his gaze betrayed him. The tight braid at her nape had loosened, exposing the elegant line of her neck, and just below it, scars. Raised, deliberate, curling patterns burned into her violet skin. Kale's chest tightened. He had seen scars before. These weren't random. These were brands. Syra froze mid-motion, as if she had felt his stare. Slowly she straightened, turning until those molten eyes locked onto him. If you have a question, human, she said, voice brittle steel, ask it. Don't stare. Kale swallowed. Those marks, they're not just scars. Her smile was bitter, humorless. No. They're signatures. Ownership brands. The kind that says you belong to someone powerful. Someone cruel. Her fingers brushed the scars once, as if testing whether they still burned. Thane, she said quietly. The warlord Corvain warned you about. He collected me when I was 14. My people, the Velmari, we can speak to machines. Whisper, coax, make the broken sing again. He needed someone to keep his war fleet alive. Kale's voice softened. How long? 6 years. The words cut from her lips like a blade. 6 years of building weapons for a monster. 6 years of being paraded as his prize mechanic. Until I whispered to his flagship's heart and told it to tear itself apart mid-jump. 300 of his best soldiers burned in the void. Her jaw clenched, daring him to judge. I am no hero, Kale. I'm a murderer who got very lucky. Silence filled the workshop, heavy as the storm outside. Kale thought of Morel, of the cold halls of Titan, of Director Hensley's blood. His own sin pressed against his ribs like a knife. My sister's name was Morel, he said finally. The words tumbled out, fragile and raw. She was 15. Bright, stubborn. The plague took her while Earth Authority debated. There was vaccine, plenty of it, but colonists weren't priority. His throat tightened. So I stole it. And when Hensley tried to stop me, I killed him. Not in defense. In rage. Syra's gaze softened, faint cracks in her armor. We have a word. Ashira. A noble sin. A terrible thing done for love. You committed Ashira. Kale exhaled, the weight easing a fraction. Then maybe we're both damned. Or maybe, she said, her fingers brushing his cheek before she pulled away. Damnation is the only thing we still share with the living. She turned back to the engine. Golden eyes glinting. Now. Apprentice. Let's see if you can whisper to machines. Kale stepped closer, but his thoughts weren't on the engine. They were on her scars, and the dangerous spark that had begun to burn between them. The crawl space hatch was barely wider than Kale's shoulders. Dark, claustrophobic, The metal radiated leftover heat from the storm like a furnace. He eyed it with skepticism. This is where my second test happens. In a hole? Syra crouched at the entrance, golden eyes gleaming in the half-light. Engines don't care about glory, apprentice. They hide their secrets where soft-boned species like you don't want to crawl. You want to fly again? You go where the machine takes you. Before Kale could argue, she slipped inside. Her body moved with inhuman grace, compressing in ways that made his spine ache just watching. She glanced back, silver hair brushing the tight walls. Coming human? Or shall I finish this myself? He gritted his teeth and slid in after her. The walls pressed in on all sides. Every move forced him chest to back with her, their limbs brushing in the dark. He tried to focus on the hum of energy beneath the panels, but every brush of her cool skin against his sent his thoughts scattering. Hand, she ordered. She guided his palm onto a section of vibrating alloy. The metal thrummed with barely restrained energy. Feel that? Plasma flow. Too much pressure, and we burn from the inside out. And you expect me to fix this? Kale muttered. Syra's head tilted back slightly, her voice curling near his ear. No. I expect you to listen. Whisper. The machine will tell you what it wants, if you stop shouting human logic at it. For 20 minutes she guided him. Her hands over his, repositioning wires, adjusting flow regulators, tapping pressure valves in sequences that made no sense to him. Twice the ship groaned, and their bodies pressed so tightly together he could feel the strange double rhythm of her heartbeat. She never acknowledged it, though her breathing hitched once when his fingers brushed her wrist. Finally, the vibration settled into a steady hum. Stable. Syra pulled herself forward, emerging from the crawl space slick with sweat and coolant. She sat back against a bulkhead, chest rising and falling. Not bad, for a human who only knows how to pull triggers. Kale followed, dragging himself out, face streaked with grime. I save my panic for special occasions. A laugh slipped out of her, low and genuine. She produced a flask from her belt, uncapped it, and drank. The liquid glowed faint blue. She offered it to him. He sniffed it. What is this? Valen whiskey. Fruit that grows only under binary suns. Her lips curved. Drink. Kale took a swallow. It was like swallowing fire and starlight, burning his throat, then cooling his chest in waves. He coughed. Tastes like pepper and bad decisions. Her laughter warmed the room. Your accent is worse than your tolerance. Before Kale could reply, Syra's comm device crackled. Her smile faded. She checked the readout, eyes narrowing. They're here. Kale frowned. Who's here? Through the torn hull, 3 syndicate crawlers rolled into view. The Violet Syndicate, Syra said coldly. And this time, apprentice, they didn't come to talk. The Nexus 7 market was a maze carved from abandoned mining tunnels. Lanterns strung on scavenged wires swung in the hot air, throwing fractured shadows across stalls piled high with stolen tech. Kale stayed close to Syra, one hand brushing the grip of his pistol, the other clutching the strap of his pack. Everywhere he looked were faces alien and human alike, hungry, desperate, dangerous. A vendor with 6 eyes tried to sell him weapons made from repurposed ship plating. Another, her skin metallic blue, called out about reactor cores like she was hawking fruit. The smell of oil, fried meat, and ozone stung Kale's nose. Syra moved like she owned the place. Her black jumpsuit drew glances, her golden eyes made people step aside. She pointed toward a stall stacked with flux regulators. We need one of those if you want your wreck to fly again. Stay here. But instead of approaching the stall, she veered off. Kale frowned, following her line of sight. At the far end of the market, a woman lounged at a bar carved into asteroid rock. She was all sharp edges and dangerous curves, her skin shifting between green and gold like oil catching light. The name stitched onto her jacket, Zara. Kale stiffened as Syra's entire demeanor changed. Her stride loosened, hips swaying, a predator pretending to be prey. She slid onto the stool beside Zara, their bodies angling together as if magnets. Still flying that death trap you call a ship? Syra purred, her voice lower, warmer. Zara's smile curved, teeth flashing. Still hiding in caves, Syra? Heard you picked up a new pet. Her gaze flicked past Syra, landing on Kale. She smirked. That him? Syra leaned in closer, so close Zara's fingers trailed along the violet skin of her arm. My apprentice, she murmured. Hands like you wouldn't believe. Kale's jaw clenched, nails digging into his palm. He knew it was an act. But the sound of Syra's throaty laugh, the way she let Zara's hand wander, stirred something hot and ugly in his chest. For 10 agonizing minutes, they talked in half-whispers, close enough that hair and breath mingled. Syra's hand brushed Zara's thigh. Zara played with the braid at Syra's nape. Their smiles weren't humor, they were sharp, secret exchanges. Finally, Zara pulled Syra back when she stood. She whispered something too low for Kale to catch. Syra's eyes flickered, just for a moment, then she laughed it off and sauntered back toward him. Jealousy, she said, her smile wicked, is a good look on you, apprentice. Kale grabbed her arm, pulled her behind a stack of crates where no one could see. The space was tight, her back against the metal, his chest nearly pressing into hers. His voice came out rough. I don't share my mechanics. Her breathing quickened. Golden eyes darkened. I'm not yours to share. Not yet, Kale shot back. They froze there, breath mingling, the air charged with something dangerous and undeniable. Then someone coughed nearby, breaking the spell. Syra slipped past him, hand brushing his chest as she did, deliberate and promising. Zara had news, she said coolly. Thane is arriving 3 cycles early. Which means your 3rd test starts tonight. Kale's blood ran cold. The warlord wasn't a distant threat anymore. He was almost here. The workshop was silent except for the hum of machines cooling down. Syra sat across from Kale at a scarred metal table, no tools between them, no engine to hide behind. Her golden eyes fixed on him like they could peel back his skin and read the marrow beneath. 3rd test, she said simply. Truth. Kale leaned back, crossing his arms. Truth about what? You already know more than most people I've met. Facts are not truth. Her voice was steady, low. You told me what you did. Not why. Kale looked away. The workshop lights flickered, shadows stretching long across the walls. He thought about Morel, about her coughing until her body broke under the plague's grip. About the sterile white rooms where Earth Authority representatives quoted regulations while her life bled out second by second. I wanted to be enough, he said finally, his voice raw. Enough to save her. Enough to matter. I wasn't. She died while men in suits counted quotas. So when I pulled the trigger on Hensley, it wasn't justice. It wasn't strategy. It was hate. And afterward, his throat closed for a moment. Afterward, I kept telling myself the stolen vaccine would make it worth something. That I wasn't just a man who murdered out of rage. The silence that followed was heavy. Syra's hand twitched once, as if reaching, then stilled. Her gaze was steady, but softer now. Do you want redemption? Kale's laugh was bitter. Redemption won't bring her back. No. Syra's jaw tightened. Then she drew a breath. My truth, then. She tugged at her collar, pulling it aside just enough to reveal the brands Kale had seen before. They caught the workshop light, ugly and deliberate. Thane kept me 6 years, she said. He called me his flower of fire. I built weapons that slaughtered thousands. Sometimes soldiers. Sometimes not. I told myself survival was enough. That one day I would escape. She met his eyes, and for the first time her voice shook. When the day came, I sabotaged his flagship. It was escorting medics. Refugees. 300 died screaming in the void because I wanted freedom. Kale's breath caught. Syra. I am not noble. She cut him off sharply. I am Ashira. A sin done for myself, not love. Her hand curled into a fist against the table. Do you understand now? Why I cannot let you believe me a savior? Kale leaned forward, voice rough. Maybe we're both Ashira. But maybe that means we understand each other in a way no one else can. Syra froze, her golden eyes wide. Then, slowly, her hand unclenched. Tentatively, she reached across the table. Kale covered it with his own, their fingers brushing, cool skin against warm. The moment held, fragile and dangerous. Then every screen in the workshop flared to life, bathing them in harsh white. The face that appeared was beautiful and cruel, silver skin stretched over sharp features, eyes black as the void. Syra, the voice purred. Velvet edged in razors. My violet flower. I've come to collect what's mine. Kale's blood ran ice cold. The warlord. Thane. And he knew their time had just run out. The screens crackled, filling the workshop with Thane's face. His smile was carved elegance, but his eyes were voids that promised nothing but suffering. Behind him, the blurred outline of a warship pulsed with crimson light, a predator waiting for the kill. My flower. Thane crooned, his voice silk stretched over knives. How far you've strayed. And with such primitive company. His gaze shifted, pinning Kale through the feed. A human. How quaint. Bring me his head, Syra, and I might forgive your absence. Kale felt her flinch beside him. Not fear, fury. You don't own me anymore, she said, each word a blade. Thane chuckled, low and amused. I branded you. I bled my mark into your skin. You are mine until I choose otherwise. And I do not choose. His smile widened, cruel. 1 hour. Deliver the human, or watch as I burn your canyon and every thief in it. Your people will choke on smoke before they beg for death. The screens went dark. Silence pressed down like a weight. Syra stood frozen for a heartbeat, calculating. Kale saw it in her eyes, the math of survival. Hand him over, return to the leash, live. Or fight, and almost certainly die. Her lips parted, but no words came. Kale broke the silence. If you want to give me up, do it. I've lived with worse than execution. Her head snapped toward him, golden eyes blazing. Don't you dare make this easier for me. Then she stepped close, closer than she ever had before, her hands rising to cup his face. The tremor in her fingers betrayed the storm inside her. Do you remember? She whispered, when I said humans were fragile? He nodded once, throat tight. I was wrong, she said, voice breaking. You are the strongest thing I've ever held. Before Kale could answer, she kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, fierce, tasting of endings and beginnings all tangled together. A promise and a goodbye. His hands rose instinctively, clutching her waist, pulling her closer as if the force of his grip could anchor her against the storm outside. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Her forehead pressed to his. 1 hour. She whispered. That's all we have to prove broken things can still fight. The workshop lights flickered as if in agreement. Thunder rolled across Nexus 7's crimson sky. Kale swallowed hard. Then we'd better make that hour count. Syra turned, eyes hard again, resolve forged in the fire of her scars. Follow me. She led him deeper into the cavern, past sealed doors he hadn't noticed before. Each opened with the hiss of hidden locks until they reached a vast chamber. And there it sat. A fighter unlike anything Kale had ever seen. Curved like it was grown, angles sharp as blades, metal shifting colors under the dim light. It looked alive. Predatory. Waiting. You built this? Kale breathed. Syra's hand brushed the hull. The ship responded with a faint glow, as if recognizing her touch. Started the day I escaped. Velmari Engineering. Syndicate Tech. And a few improvements of my own. She turned to him, golden eyes steady. It's never been tested. The neural sync alone could kill us both. But against Thane's fleet. Kale's heart pounded. So our choices are certain death, or possible death. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. When you put it like that, it almost sounds romantic. The fighter's whole pulse faint violet under Syra's hand, like a heartbeat answering hers. Kale stood beside her, staring at the impossible curves and seamless joints, half in awe, half in dread. "This thing is alive," he muttered. "Not alive," Syra corrected softly, "but listening. My people whisper, remember? I built her to hear me. To hear us." She crossed to a locker set into the wall and pulled out 2 flight suits. The fabric shimmered like liquid, folding around her arms as if eager to bond. She tossed the other to Kale. "Bioreactive. It will help with the neural link." Kale turned his back as he unzipped his grimy flight gear. He could hear the whisper of Syra's suit sealing around her curves. She laughed, low and amused. "Modesty? We're about to share thoughts, human. Everything you've imagined." She let the word drip like honey. "I'll feel. And you'll feel me." He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to focus on the suit. The material clung to his body like a second skin, warm and almost alive. When he turned back, Syra was sealing the collar of her own, the liquid fabric highlighting the strong lines of her frame. She stepped close, fingers brushing over his seals, adjusting with professional precision. He caught the faint tremor in her hands. "The sync will hurt. You'll feel me. My memories. My scars. Some of it may break you." Kale met her gaze steadily. "More uncomfortable than dying?" Her lips twitched. "Different uncomfortable." Then she reached up and tugged a thin braid free from her silver hair. With care, she wove it into the collar of his suit, the strands warm against his skin. "What's this?" he asked. Her eyes dropped, uncharacteristically shy. "Velmari tradition. Our hair carries our soul. If we burn, a part of me will be with you." The intimacy of it hit harder than her kiss. Kale caught her hand before she could pull away. "On Earth we have a saying. Ride or die. It means we do this together, or not at all." Syra smiled then, sad, beautiful. "I like it. Very human. Very us." They climbed into the cockpit. The space was impossibly tight, bodies pressed together from shoulder to thigh. The neural crowns hovered above their heads, thin circlets of shifting biometal. "Once we connect," Syra warned, "don't fight me. The more you resist, the more it hurts. Trust me." "I do," Kale said simply. The crowns descended with a soft chime. Pain exploded through Kale's skull, blinding and electric. His vision fractured into colors that didn't exist. He could feel her, Syra, every thought, every scar, every desperate hope. Thane's hand on her throat. The burn of brands. The sound of her voice whispering machines into life. And beneath it all, her sharp, aching loneliness. And then her view of him. His hands on the pistol that killed Hensley. His grief, Morel's laughter echoing in memory. The weight of guilt that hollowed him out. Their breaths synced. Their heartbeats fell into rhythm. The pain dulled, replaced by a terrifying, exhilarating unity. The ship stirred, systems flaring to life, like it too had joined the link. "Holy shit!" Kale gasped. "Wait!" Syra whispered inside his mind, her voice curling around his thoughts. "Wait until we fly." The fighter's engines sang to life, not a roar but a harmony, multiple tones weaving into something that vibrated in Kale's bones. Through the neural link, he felt Syra's exhilaration bloom inside him, fierce and bright. The cavern ceiling split open, stone plates sliding back to reveal the blood-red sky. Above, Thane's dreadnought loomed like a scar carved across the heavens. "Syra!" His voice coiled through every channel, smooth and venomous. "You think a toy will save you? You think a human makes you strong?" "I don't think," Syra replied. Her voice hard and calm, echoing inside Kale's skull as much as across the comms. "I know." Then the fighter leapt from the cave like a bullet from a gun. Acceleration crushed Kale into the seat, but he didn't fight it. The link carried Syra's instincts into him, turning pressure and velocity into rhythm. Enemy fighters swarmed, blocky syndicate craft bristling with cannons. Laser fire slashed the air in burning streaks. "Hard right," Syra thought, and Kale matched her heartbeat. Together they pulled the stick. The ship twisted impossibly, rolling between blasts that should have vaporized them. Kale laughed, the sound wild, reckless. Like dancing, he thought aloud. Like burning, Syra replied, and he felt her joy flood through him. They moved as one. Her hands adjusted plasma flow, his instincts cut thrust just before a blast struck. Each time one of them faltered, the other caught them through the link. For a moment, Kale forgot the weight of death pressing from above. For a moment, they were something greater. Syndicate fighters fell, exploding into blossoms of fire across the crimson sky. But the dreadnought loomed closer, its main cannon charging. One hit, Kale muttered, and we're ash. Syra's focus narrowed, cold determination flowing into him. There's a weakness. Exhaust port, unshielded during charge. Kale felt her doubt. The timing is impossible. Not impossible, Kale thought back. Human impossible. Through the link, she saw it, his plan, insane, untested. She laughed in his mind, wild and unafraid. Ride or die, then. Ride or die, he answered. The dreadnought's cannon glowed, birthing a sun in its barrel. Kale rerouted every weapon system into a jury-rigged reverse thrust, patched with nothing but instinct and duct tape. Now! The fighter kicked backward through its own debris field. Shards of wreckage turned into shrapnel, slamming into the dreadnought's exhaust port like a storm of knives. For one heartbeat, nothing. Then the warship split open, light pouring from its heart. Thane's voice cut into the link, no longer smooth, but a raw scream of fury, then silence as his dreadnought became a new star in Nexus 7's sky. The shockwaves slammed into them like a god's fist. Systems flared, then died. The fighter spun, gravity failing, panels ripping free. Syra! I know. Her voice was tight with pain but burning with resolve. Hold the link. Don't let go. Kale clutched her hand. Through her, he felt it, not fear, not regret, but satisfaction. They had chosen each other. And together they had killed a warlord. The ground rushed up to meet them. The fighter screamed as atmosphere tore at her hull, flames peeling away armor and molten ribbons. Kale's harness bit into his shoulders as they spun, ground and sky trading places with dizzying speed. The neural link pulsed pain and adrenaline through both their skulls. Stabilizers gone. Syra gasped inside his head, every thought ragged. Landing struts. Kale pushed back, fingers dancing over failing controls. Deploy, anything! The ship didn't listen. It was less flying now than falling with style. They hit first against a canyon wall. Metal shrieked, sparks exploded, panels ripped away. The fighter bounced, rolled, skidded, gouging a burning trail across Nexus 7's scarred soil until it finally collapsed in a cloud of ash and dust. Silence. Kale's ears rang, head pounding. He dangled in the cockpit, blood dripping from his nose. His neural crown was cracked, sparking faintly. He tore it off, lungs dragging in smoke. Syra? His voice was hoarse, broken. No answer. Panic surged. He saw her slumped forward, suit charred, visor dark. Kale ripped himself free, crawling across twisted metal until he reached her. He fumbled at her seals with shaking hands, tearing the helmet free. Her face was pale, violet skin ashen, lips parted just enough to show breath that came shallow and uneven. No, 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 Kale whispered, pressing two fingers to her throat. A pulse, weak but there. Relief made him sag against the seat. He pulled her out, dragging her across what remained of the cockpit until they collapsed together on the shattered hull. Smoke rose in lazy curls around them, the wreck hissing with cooling metal. Come on, Syra, he muttered, cradling her against his chest. Her skin was cold, too cold. He tore off his jacket and wrapped it around her, holding her tight. You don't get to quit on me. Not after that. Her eyes fluttered, golden irises dim but alive. Her lips moved, voice barely audible. You left the controls. Kale let out a strangled laugh, half relief, half disbelief. Yeah. Well, you left the ship. Her breath hitched, A laugh or a cough, he couldn't tell. No one ever left the controls for me. Cale pressed his forehead to hers, gripping her hand like a lifeline. No one's ever been worth it. The wreck groaned around them. Sparks popped. Somewhere in the distance, syndicate engines rumbled, vultures circling the kill. But for a heartbeat, none of it mattered. It was just the two of them, battered and broken, clinging to each other in the ashes of their survival. Syra's hand twitched, her cool fingers curling into his. We should. Yeah, Cale murmured, cutting her off. But not yet. For the first time since Titan, he let himself breathe. Together. The rumble of engines grew louder, shaking the scorched canyon floor. Cale tightened his hold on Syra, hauling her upright against the wreck's jagged hull. His pistol was half buried in ash, grip scorched, but he dragged it free and leveled it at the rising dust clouds anyway. 3 syndicate crawlers rolled into view, their hulls welded from scavenged freighters and bristling with plasma cannons. Searchlights stabbed through the smoke, painting the wreckage in harsh white. Cale, Syra rasped, her voice weak but cutting. Don't shoot. Not yet. The lead crawler ground to a halt. Its hatch hissed, and the bulk that climbed out was unmistakable. Corvain. Forearms crossed over his massive chest, scaled hide glinting in the crimson light. His black, hollow eyes locked onto them. For a long, terrifying moment, the canyon was silent. Then Corvain laughed. The sound was gravel and a grinder, low and disbelieving. I'll be damned. A human and a Velmari killed Thane. He gestured with one heavy arm toward the sky, where a new star still burned bright, the shattered remains of Thane's dreadnought. Together. Cale kept his pistol steady, though his hands shook. If you're here to finish what he started. Corvain barked another laugh, sharp as broken stone. Finish you? Human, you just did what syndicate fleets failed to do for 20 years. You broke our chains. Behind him, syndicate mercs climbed from their vehicles, their weapons lowered, their gazes wary but curious. Murmurs rippled through the group, disbelief turning into something else. Respect. Syra forced herself to her feet, one arm draped around Cale's shoulders. Her golden eyes burned despite her weakness. We didn't do it for you, she said, her voice iron. No, Corvain admitted, his lipless grin showing too many teeth. But you did it all the same. Thane is ash, and the galaxy will know whose hands lit the fire. He stepped closer, looming. For a moment, Cale braced for betrayal. Instead, Corvain extended one massive lower hand palm open. Welcome to outlaw space, Syra of the Violet Flame. And you, human. You've earned a name. The Syndicate doesn't forget debts. Syra didn't move. Cale glanced at her. She nodded once, slow and wary. Together, they clasped Corvain's hand. His grip was iron, but not hostile. Around them, Syndicate fighters raised their weapons, not in threat but salute. Cale exhaled, his heart still hammering. They weren't dead. Not yet. But as the crowd's whispers grew, as eyes lingered on him and Syra both, he realized something dangerous. Survival was one thing. Becoming a story was another. And in outlaw space, stories had teeth. The celebration outside the canyon raged for hours, Syndicate fighters drinking, engines roaring, stories of Thane's death growing more outlandish with every retelling. Cale and Syra slipped away long before dawn, leaving the chaos for the quiet sanctuary of her workshop. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of oil and metal. The hum of tools was softer now. Almost soothing. Cale sat on a bench, cradling a bruised rib, while Syra moved around the room like a shadow. She set down fresh flux coils, sorted a tray of tools, and only then lowered herself opposite him. For a while, they just breathed. You realize, Cale said finally, voice rough. We're legends now. Syra's lips curved in a humorless smile. Legends die faster than soldiers. The Syndicate will celebrate you until they need a scapegoat. Cale leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Then let them try. I've already been living on borrowed time. She studied him in silence, golden eyes flickering. Then, slowly, she reached up and tugged at the collar of her suit. For the second time, she showed him the scars burned into her skin. These, she said, voice low, are not just brands. In Velmari culture, scars are prophecies. Thane marked me as his property, but the marks say something else too. They say I am fated to return to him. Her gaze sharpened. When Corvain said 7 cycles, it wasn't a threat. It was scripture. My clan believes prophecy cannot be broken. Kale's jaw tightened. Then we write a new prophecy. Her laugh was soft, incredulous. You make it sound simple. Not simple, Kale said. He reached out, fingers brushing the burned ridges along her collar. She stiffened but didn't pull away. But prophecy only matters if we let it. You're not a flower someone plucked. You're fire. You proved that when you burned his fleet. Her breath hitched, the smallest crack in her armor. She caught his wrist, holding his hand against her skin for a moment longer than necessary. Careful, human. Your mouth writes checks your fragile body may not cash. Kale grinned despite himself. Fragile's overrated. For a heartbeat, the workshop felt warmer. The scars between them, hers burned into flesh, his buried under guilt, seemed less like chains and more like threads binding them together. Then Syra stood, breaking the spell. She pulled a half-assembled engine core onto the bench. Enough truth for one night. Apprentice, grab a spanner. We've work to do. Kale rose, still watching the faint glow of her eyes, and for the first time since Morel's death, he felt something other than rage. Possibility. The Nexus 7 market was louder this time, alive with rumors. Every corridor hummed with the story of the human and the Velmari who killed a warlord. Kale caught fragments in half a dozen languages: fire flower, ashmaker, death dancer. It made his stomach knot. Stories traveled faster than ships. Syra moved through the crowd with her usual predatory grace, ignoring the stares. Kale followed, hand never straying far from his pistol. They needed parts, stabilizers, fuel converters, anything to keep their stolen fighter alive long enough to run. But instead of the stalls, Syra veered toward the asteroid bar again. Kale's gut clenched when he saw who was waiting. Zara. The mercenary pilot lounged on her stool like she owned the sector, jacket glinting in the low light. Her skin shimmered green-gold, eyes sharp and amused. The instant she saw Syra, her smile curled. Well, Zara purred, if it isn't the violet flame herself. Word is you burned Thane to ash. With a human, no less. Her gaze slid past Syra, locking onto Kale. So this is your little miracle? Syra slid onto the stool beside her, posture suddenly looser, lazier. Kale knew the act now, knew the way she softened her edges to draw people in. Still, it burned to watch. Miracle, Syra echoed, lips close to Zara's ear. Apprentice suits him better. Zara's laugh was low, throaty. Her hand brushed Syra's braid. You always had a taste for the exotic. Shame you never let me tame you. Syra tilted her head, golden eyes gleaming. I was never tame, Zara. You just didn't try hard enough. The words sliced Kale like a blade. He stood stiff, jaw clenched, while the two women traded whispers and touches like knives and silk. Every laugh, every lean closer made his pulse spike. Finally, Zara's hand lingered too long on Syra's thigh. Kale moved before he thought, crossing the space in 3 strides. He grabbed Syra's arm, not rough, but firm, and pulled her behind a stack of crates. The space was tight, her back against cold metal, his chest almost against hers. His voice came out raw, edged with something he couldn't swallow. I don't share my mechanics. Her breath caught. Golden eyes darkened, flickering with something that wasn't anger. I'm not yours to share. Not yet, Kale growled. The air between them crackled, heat and danger wound tight. For a second, Syra didn't move, her chest rising fast against his. Then she slipped out from under his arm, brushing his chest with her fingers as she passed. Deliberate. Promising. Jealousy. She murmured, lips curved wickedly. It suits you, apprentice. Kale stood frozen, pulse racing, as she strode back into the crowd. When she returned, her smile was gone, replaced by hard calculation. Zara had news, she said quietly. Thane's son has taken his throne. And he's coming for us. Kale's gut turned to ice. When? 3 cycles early, Syra answered. Her golden eyes met his, sharp and unflinching. Which means your next test isn't survival. What is it then? War. The workshop felt smaller now, its walls pressing in with the weight of the galaxy. Kale sat at the central bench, hands raw from tightening bolts, while Syra moved with furious purpose. Tools clanged, sparks hissed, and her voice barked orders like she was commanding an army. Fuel lines secured? Double-checked, Kale said, sweat dripping from his brow. Stabilizers? Stable enough to hold us through hell. She nodded, silver hair plastered to her temple with sweat, golden eyes hard as tempered steel. 4 hours they had worked in silence broken only by commands, pushing the fighter from wounded relic toward battle-ready beast. Finally, Syra dropped her spanner and leaned against the hull, breathing hard. The faint glow of the ship responded to her exhaustion, its surface shifting colors like sympathy. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, Kale saw her tremble. What did Zara whisper? He asked quietly. Her eyes snapped open, burning. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, slowly, she said Damien isn't just coming to kill me. He's coming to collect. Kale frowned. Collect? Thane's son believes in blood debts. He claims what his father owned. The brand's Kale. Her voice cracked, bitter. He thinks they mean I'm his by right. Kale's stomach turned. Over my dead body. Over both our dead bodies. She corrected, voice soft now. She pushed away from the hull, stepping closer. That's the thing, apprentice. Legends burn bright, but they burn fast. If we fight Damien, we don't walk away. Kale met her gaze steady. Then let's make it a fight worth remembering. She studied him for a long, quiet moment. Then, almost reluctantly, her lips curved. You're impossible. He stepped closer, until the hum of the fighter wrapped around them both. Maybe. But you haven't left yet. Her hand rose, cool fingers brushing the edge of his jaw. The workshop light gleamed on her scars. The prophecy burned into her skin. You don't know what you're choosing, Kale. Warlords don't forgive. Syndicates don't forget. Neither do brothers, he said. Morel deserved better. So do you. The silence that followed was electric, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Syra pulled back, breaking the tension. 3 cycles, she said, voice brisk again. That's all the time we have. If Damien wants a war, we'll give him one. Kale glanced at the fighter, its hull glowing faintly like it already hungered for the fight. He tightened his grip on the spanner. Ride or die. The first sign was silence. Nexus 7's markets, usually a riot of sound, fell quiet all at once. Kale felt it before he saw it. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the sky turned crimson. Engines rumbled like thunder. From the horizon, ships appeared, sleek, predatory silhouettes cut from void black steel. Not cobbled syndicate crawlers, but war machines. Too sharp. Too clean. And at their head, a dreadnought shaped like a blade drawn against the heavens. Damien Thane had arrived. Crowds flooded into the canyon streets, syndicate fighters craning their necks as the fleet blotted out the stars. Kale stood at the workshop entrance, pulse hammering, watching the impossible weight of that dreadnought hang above them. His hand brushed the grip of his pistol, a useless gesture against a sky full of guns. Syra joined him, her silver hair catching the red light. Her jaw was tight, eyes fixed on the flagship. He's early. I thought we had 3 cycles. Maybe he didn't want to give us time to breathe, Kale muttered. The comm systems screeched alive across the settlement. Every screen, every speaker carried a new face, Damien. He looked young, younger than Kale expected. Smooth silver skin unmarred by scars, hair black as vacuum, eyes burning with inherited cruelty. He was beautiful in the same way a blade was beautiful, elegant, lethal, made to cut. People of Nexus 7. His voice rang out, calm and measured. I am Damian Thane, son of the warlord you betrayed. My father's blood is ash in the void because of two traitors, a branded mechanic and her human pet. Murmurs rippled through the streets. Cale felt the words hit him like bullets. Human pet. Damian smiled faintly, almost polite. Return them to me, and I will grant mercy to this station. Refuse. His eyes sharpened, voice dropping to a whisper that carried like thunder. And I will salt this canyon with fire until nothing remains but bones. The calm cut out. Silence followed. Then a roar as Syndicate fighters shouted, engines firing, weapons being readied. But Cale saw the uncertainty in their faces. They had hated Thane. They had cheered his death. But this was his son, his fleet, a god returned to claim a throne. Cale's fists clenched. He thinks he can just erase what we did. Pretend Thane still owns you. Syra's voice was low, but steady. In his mind, he does. Her fingers brushed the scars at her collar unconsciously. Damian was a child when Thane took me. He watched. He learned. He believes the brand makes prophecy. Cale turned to her, eyes hard. Then let's break prophecy again. She finally looked at him, golden eyes burning brighter than the fleet overhead. Ride or die, apprentice? He reached for her hand, squeezing tight. Ride or die. Above them, Damian's dreadnought shifted, weapons arrays powering up, crimson light bleeding across the canyon. The war had come to Nexus 7. The canyon was a forge of chaos. Syndicate fighters sprinted between half-buried bunkers, loading crates of munitions onto crawlers and welding armor plates onto their vehicles. The air stank of fuel and desperation. Cale followed Syra through the storm of activity until they reached a command ring carved into the rock. Corvain stood at its center, massive frame framed by floodlights. His forearms moved with surprising precision, one pointing crews toward artillery, another handing out weapons, the others gesturing at a projected map of Nexus 7. When Syra approached, conversations died. All eyes shifted to her. To them. The violet flame. One merc muttered in awe. And the human. Another added, voice half respect, half doubt. Corvain's black eyes fixed on Cale, then on Syra. He grinned, showing teeth. So. The son of Ash arrives with his father's fleet. And here we stand, the outcasts of 100 worlds. Tell me, Syra, do we fight? Syra's chin lifted. We fight. But not like he expects. Corvain tilted his head. Explain. Cale stepped forward, surprising himself. His voice was steady, carrying in a way he hadn't planned. Damian expects fear. He wants us to believe the brand owns her, that humans are weak. But we showed the galaxy something else when we burned his father. Together, we're stronger than his prophecy. The Syndicate murmured, shifting. Some nodded. Others stared, uncertain. Corvain slammed a clawed fist against the table, making the map projector flicker. You heard the human! We've licked fear before, and we'll spit it back again! Cheers rose, ragged but real. Syra leaned toward Cale, her voice low enough only he heard. You're reckless. Yeah, he murmured. But it worked, didn't it? Her lips twitched despite the tension. Just don't die proving me wrong. Corvain spread his arms wide, silencing the room. Damian's fleet has numbers. Firepower. Prophecy. But we have something he doesn't. He pointed two fingers at Syra and Cale. Legends. The killers of Thane. And tonight, we proved legends can kill twice. The canyon roared with approval, weapons lifted, engines revved. For the first time, Cale saw not fear but fire in their eyes. Syra's golden gaze found his. You wanted redemption, apprentice? He nodded. Then let's earn it. Above them, Damian's dreadnought split the clouds, crimson light painting the canyon like blood. The first wave of fighters peeled off from its hull, descending like carrion birds. The war had begun. The night split open in fire. Damien's fighters screamed down from the dreadnought, sleek blades of black steel, their engines howling like wolves on the hunt. Plasma bolts lit the canyon in blinding streaks, gouging stone, turning syndicate crawlers into molten wrecks. Kale dove behind a barricade as a blast tore the air apart where he'd stood seconds earlier. Heat slammed into his back, the smell of scorched metal and burning flesh flooding his lungs. He rolled, raised his pistol, and fired at the advancing infantry, aliens in armor the color of midnight, their weapons crackling with energy. Beside him, Syra moved like liquid fire. Her plasma wrench spat arcs of blue-white death, cutting through armored plating as easily as paper. Every strike hummed with precision, her golden eyes blazing with battle light. The link wasn't active here, but Kale swore he could still feel her focus, her fury, her intent, braided with his own. Left flank. Kale shouted. She spun, fluid, striking low, disarming one soldier before driving her torch through another's chest. Sparks burst like fireworks. She didn't flinch. Overhead, syndicate crawlers returned fire. Mounted cannons spat plasma into the sky, catching two fighters and sending them spiraling down in flames. The crowd roared approval, only to be silenced as another barrage collapsed an entire section of canyon wall, burying crews alive under tons of stone. Kale's gut twisted. Damien wasn't trying to win quickly. He was bleeding them, grinding hope into dust. Corvain. Syra barked over comms. The warlord's voice growled back. Holding central. But his waves don't stop. Static cut across the channel. We can't hold without that fighter of yours. Kale ducked as shrapnel showered past, dragging Syra behind cover. He's right. We can't win down here. Her jaw tightened, eyes flicking to the canyon sky where Damien's flagship glowed like a second sun. We take the fight to him. Kale swallowed hard, adrenaline burning in his veins. That means sinking again. Afraid, apprentice? Terrified, he admitted. Then he bared his teeth in something like a grin. But if we're going to die, let's make it spectacular. Her laugh was sharp and fierce, even under fire. Good. Because spectacular is the only way we survive. They sprinted through chaos, past burning crawlers, collapsing walls, syndicate mercs screaming war songs in a dozen tongues. Plasma bolts stitched the ground at their heels. Dust and smoke clawed their lungs. At the workshop's mouth, their fighter waited, patched and glowing faintly as if it had been holding its breath for them. Syra's hand brushed Kale's as they ran, a fleeting touch amid the storm. Ride or die. Ride or die. He echoed, and together they leapt into the fire once more. The fighter's canopy sealed shut with a hiss, shutting out the chaos of the canyon. For a moment, silence reigned. Just Kale and Syra, pressed shoulder to shoulder in the cramped cockpit, the glow of instruments painting their faces in pale blue. Kale's chest rose and fell, lungs burning with smoke and adrenaline. He turned his head, finding Syra already watching him. Her golden eyes flickered, sharp as ever, but beneath them something softer glowed. This might kill us, he said. She smirked faintly. Everything worth doing might kill you. He gave a huff of laughter that wasn't entirely sane. That's supposed to make me feel better? Her hand brushed his on the controls, cool against his skin. It's supposed to make you honest. You're afraid. I feel it. Through the Nero crowns hovering above them. He already felt the beginnings of her presence. Warm, cold, sharp, soft, all contradictions bleeding into him. Of course I'm afraid, he admitted. But fear means I still want to live. And right now, I want to live with you. The words slipped out before he could stop them. He half expected her to cut them down. Instead, Syra's expression shifted. The smirk fell away, leaving something raw and unguarded. You reckless human, she murmured, leaning closer. Always saying the things no one else would dare. Her forehead touched his. For one heartbeat, the war outside didn't exist. Just the hum of the fighter, the scent of her skin, ozone and spice, and the electric tension that had been building since the moment she pressed a plasma torch to his chest. Ride or die, Kale whispered. Her lips curved into something fierce, something almost tender. Ride or die. The neural crowns descended, locking onto their temples. Pain bloomed like fire, then melted into unity. Their breaths synchronized. Their hearts found the same rhythm. Kale felt her scars like they were his own. He felt her rage, her loneliness, her defiance. And through her, Syra felt his grief, his guilt, the echo of Morel's laughter. And yet beneath it all, there was something new, something neither had dared admit but both felt burning now. Hope. The fighters' engines roared, harmonizing with their shared pulse. Outside, Damien's fleet blotted out the stars, weapons charging to paint the canyon in fire. Syra's voice filled Kale's mind, strong and certain. Let's burn prophecy to ash. Kale tightened his grip on the controls. Together, the fighter launched skyward like a spear, cutting through the storm and carrying them straight into war. The fighter screamed through Nexus 7's blood-red sky, every system alive with their link. Kale and Syra moved as one, every thought braided, every reflex shared. Plasma bolts streaked past, enemy fighters swarming like hornets. Hard left! Syra's thought cut sharp through his mind. Kale rolled them into a dive. A syndicate fighter overshot, and Syra's hands danced across the weapons. A lance of violet fire split the void, tearing the pursuer apart. More came. Dozens. Too many. But fear didn't choke Kale this time. Not with Syra inside his head. Together, they wove through chaos, turning the impossible into instinct. He felt her laugh in his chest as they pulled 7 Gs through a corkscrew. She felt his grin when their guns cut down 3 ships in one burst. They weren't pilot and mechanic anymore. They were something new. But Damien's dreadnought loomed above, a mountain of steel and hate. Its main cannon charged, crimson light flooding the clouds. One blast, and Nexus 7 would be ash. Kale's pulse hammered. We'll never punch through that armor. Syra's mind brushed his, fierce and calm. We don't need to. His weakness is the same as his father's, arrogance. On his sensor, the dreadnought's exhaust array glowed white-hot. Open, vulnerable during the charge cycle. Kale's stomach turned. The timing was suicide. Syra's hand gripped his, their fingers lacing tight. Ride or die, Kale Draven. He bared his teeth, heart slamming against hers through the link. Ride or die. They dove. Fighters peeled off to chase, lasers carving the air around them. Syra rerouted power, bleeding the core until the fighter howled. Kale threaded through wreckage, every move half-human instinct, half-Velmari whisper. The dreadnought's cannon reached critical. A sun bloomed in its barrel. Now! Syra's thought hit like a spark. Kale slammed the throttles. They fired every weapon at once, not at the dreadnought, but at their own trajectory. The blast hurled them backward through a field of debris, shards turned into bullets at relativistic speed. The storm of shrapnel slammed into the exhaust port. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the dreadnought cracked open, fire spilling from its heart. Damien's scream echoed across every channel, rage, shock, disbelief, before the ship tore itself apart in a blinding nova. The shockwave swallowed them. The fighter spun, systems dying, the neural link sparking pain through their skulls. Kale felt Syra slipping, her presence dimming in his head. Hold on, he begged. Stay with me. Her voice was faint but fierce. I'm not leaving. Not now. He triggered the last emergency system, the gravity generator, flipping it into a cushion of warp space beneath them. The fighters slammed into the canyon floor, metal shrieking, sparks raining down. Silence. Smoke. Kale blinked awake, head pounding. Syra lay across him, her suit scorched, silver hair tangled against his chest. Her golden eyes flickered open, locking on his. We did it, she whispered, voice raw but alive. He laughed, choked and broken but real. You impossible, brilliant woman! We actually did it. When Corvain's crawlers reached the wreck an hour later, they found them still tangled together, laughing through blood and ash. The syndicate roared in triumph, the canyon echoing with chants. Thane is dead. The violet flame and her human killed him. But inside the wreck, Kale and Syra only held each other tighter. Weeks later, a new ship stood in Syra's workshop. Half Velmari elegance, half human stubbornness. Kale had painted the name himself on its hull, Second Chance. As they prepared for launch, syndicate crews gathered, raising their weapons in salute. Corvain grunted approval, calling them legends, though Kale knew legends came with prices. Inside the cockpit, Syra adjusted her seals. Kale leaned back, watching her silver braid fall over her shoulder. "You ready?" he asked. Her golden eyes softened. "With you?" "Always." The Second Chance roared to life, lifting into the sky. In the cargo hold, the salvage vaccine crates waited, enough to save thousands. In the cockpit, two broken souls, scarred and stubborn, sat shoulder to shoulder. Kale reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "Ride or die," he said quietly. "Ride or die," Syra echoed, a smile tugging at her lips. And together they vanished into the stars, fugitives, legends, lovers forged in fire. Not prophecy. Not property. Something new. Something free.